Hello and welcome everybody. I am here with a great friend, an amazing human, and your world's best kept secret. If you have not heard of this beautiful woman before, her name is Gaby Piccirilli, and she is an absolute gem of a healer. She is the founder and creator of Regenerative Pathway Therapy, RPT Health. She's worked with amazing individuals like Elle Macpherson, Rob Gronkowski, Steve Aoki, and she's been featured in New York Post and on a Netflix documentary called Vai Anitta. For those of you that don't know, Vai Anitta is an amazing, beautiful. She's more of a
performer.
How do you say performer? Thank you. Performer in South America. Where exactly?
In
Gaby?
Brazil.
Brazil, beautiful. And so welcome, Gaby, to the Resilient Minds podcast. So grateful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric. Honestly, it's a privilege. It's an honor. I'm so excited, and I can't wait to share what we're going to share with your listeners and your audience in the next little while we're together.
We are privileged, honestly. Like I said to everybody listening, that Gaby and I have met at Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins, and this woman is on fire. She is like God's gift to this planet, and honestly, like I said, the world's best kept secret. She does such amazing. I've been so blessed enough to go through some of her therapy, which we'll talk about in a moment. But I wanted to just, first off ask you, Gaby, a lot of the time I talk with about, how people are creating their X factors to create their Y, their WHY factors. And for that reason, they're able to create, a beautiful lifestyle, beautiful experience. So I really want to just share, I would love for you to share with the audience, what's your big X factor, that experience that changed and built upon to create that why behind what you do?
Well, first of all, I'd like to sort of begin by saying that my mission, because really what I do is a mission for me in my life. It's not my work. It's not my job. It's my absolute mission. It's what I'm here to do. And I've been blessed with this knowledge and this awareness very early in my life, considering I've been a therapist now for 15 years, and I realized that there was something greater for me when I was very young. And all of this talk of your why, or what is it that makes you different, or how are you going to share this, it was very different back then when I first started. There was really no social media. It was very much word of mouth. And so I quickly began to realize that my why and what made me so different and unique is the entire experience and how I lead, because I truly lead from my mission, my heart, my soul. Like, the feeling is so intense when I treat someone that I feel entirely connected to my purpose. And so when I started to meet amazing individuals like you and all sorts of different marketers and people that allowed me to expand into sort of the business side of what I do, because it's still very foreign. I'm a creator, I'm a healer. So for me to speak business language is like another language, but I'm learning and I'm open. And so when I started to sort of delve into all of these, all of these sort of matrices and your why, it was just so natural for me to speak. What is my X factor? It's the passion, it's the authenticity, it's the drive for why I wake up in the morning is to help and serve others the best I'm able to.
Yes, and you absolutely do, and of course that wasn't always like that, right? So before we get into like how you're able to serve people, because you for anybody that's listening, this is life-changing. Like, this is life-changing therapy that Gaby teaches, provides, she's so beautiful in the way that she serves. But before we even go there, I really want to understand some of your story, because this obviously just didn't come around. This wasn't just something that had come to fruition, this beautiful gift that you have. What did that look like? Where did you start out? What was the beginning of your experience like?
So the very beginning, from what I can remember, because now that I'm sort of on a spiritual path, and I've been in this, like I mentioned, for 15 years. So my spirituality has developed tremendously over these last few years. Now, when I think about how that first experience was, it actually started from sort of a dark moment where I was very ill and I was suffering, and I was not in a good place physically or emotionally, because what I was suffering from was undiagnosed, and there was really no cure. There was Western medicine couldn't offer any kind of solution to what I was feeling, and as a result of that, it was very heavy, and it was dark, and I was very young, and so I thought, wow, this is not how most 20-year-olds feel. I didn't understand why there was all of these complications and why I was feeling the way I was, and moreover, why there was really no answer to this. Like, what is this? We have all this amazing technology when it comes to diagnoses and all this, amazing all these things that are available to us. And so why is it that no specialist can diagnose this with like a concrete answer and then provide some kind of solution to this? So it started out actually with a huge problem. And so I was then introduced to a foot reflexologist who my grandmother happened to be listening to on the radio, on the Polish radio. And she says, you know what, I think you really need to go see this lady. Like, she is just the most intelligent speaker and therapist that I've ever heard. And she does something about the feet. And I said, well, just to give you a background context around where I was with, alternative knowledge and alternative therapies, I said, well, my feet are probably the only thing that don't hurt me. So I'm not sure how she can help me, but I trust that you feel that I should go see her. And so let's go try this. And so I ended up in this, lo and behold, coincidentally, which we know there are no coincidences, but I ended up in the world's best reflexologist in her hands, in her office, who happened to be in Toronto, where I was living at the time, just for a very short period of time, because she was living mostly abroad in Europe and Poland. And so I was given this slight insight, this time to go see her and to get treated by her. And so that's how it actually all began, is that I started out with a big problem myself, a big question mark in my health myself. And if you want me to continue, that's how I really was exposed to this. And, they always say your biggest problem is your biggest blessing. And I can testify that without, a shadow of a doubt, because I have come from that. I lived through that and I experienced that. And I thank God actually every day for that moment in time where I was suffering, because it actually was my most amazing blessing. So
tell me about the suffering, because the pain is I'm sure there's probably listeners out there that may or may not be going through maybe something similar, that you could be a blessing to them, and you could be somebody that they reach out to. So I would love it if you're okay with sharing some of that problem or that suffering that you've experienced, so some of our listeners can really get a good understanding and see if,
of course.
that's
I
somewhere
mean,
there.
my mission, of course, my mission started from that, exactly, because I felt like I was alone and sort of in the dark, and there was nobody that I could really talk to this, especially given my age. I was very young, and most 20-year-olds were definitely not into speaking about, alternative therapies and what kind of herbal teas you're drinking and what tonics you're going to take. So it started out with massive digestive issues. So I was not digesting any of the foods that I was eating. And then that triggered a whole set and a whole series of hormonal imbalances. And with that, of course, for women, your cycle gets affected. You become extremely imbalanced. Your skin suffers. All of the physicality suffers, because now you're no longer really in your actual body. You have a backlog of lymphatic your system, your lymphatic system is completely compromised, your immune system's compromised. And so everything triggers. And now I understand how intricate the human body is, and how one system absolutely is so heavily connected to the next, because that's exactly what was happening. And so when it becomes, when you get to a stage where your health is sort of a big, huge question mark for many of the best specialists, it's very discouraging, but it also is very hard to then pinpoint, where did this problem actually originate, and what is the actual underlying problem of this all? And that was another one of my blessings, because if you were to just look at the problem for what it was, for what I was experiencing, for all of the chemistry that we can quantify, so all the blood work that you can possibly get done, and all of the tests such as urine and hair and stool analysis, and every single test, because trust me, I had them all done. There's only so much that you can actually extract from that. It's all very important information, but I feel like the one thing that there is really no test for is, what sort of unresolved emotional conflicts does this person carry in their physiology? Because ultimately,
Wow.
I have come to understand, again, through my own experience, that, and now through the experience of all the people that I've been blessed to treat, is that there is always an underlying emotional root or conflict or some kind of trauma or something that has happened in the person's body, whether they were on this earth since the day they were born, or even in the mother's womb while she was carrying the child. And again, I speak from experience for myself, but also from all of the people that I have treated over the years.
So when it comes to specifically, your clients, and when they're going through, an experience, and you're working with them with this pathway. So what specifically how do you bridge that gap now where, okay, they're going through a stage or an emotional, roller coaster ride, as well as, their body their physiology is not in the best or the most beautiful state, as Tony would say. And now creating that trifecta of, like, how do we bridge that gap? So what specifically, because I know that you've taken time with huge leaders, and
Yes.
help them get back into a great state. And I'm gonna be the one that comes on record and says it, that even Tony Robbins, you've spent time with him, so having the ability to going and having the opportunity to bridge that gap from emotion to physiology. What is it that you do? Because it's so profound. And how does that work?
Okay, so get ready, because this is going to be amazing, because I get so excited to talk about this. So put your seatbelts on, get some water, and here
I
we
love
go.
it.
So first of all, I want to say that when you are living in a beautiful state like Tony teaches, and I love everything he teaches, and I think it's amazing, and that's how we should be. But sometimes that willpower to be in a beautiful state is just not enough, because when your body is wanting something, your mind is so powerful. It can put you in any possible state. But that's a constant sort of reminder. And listen, I'm all about rituals. I have daily rituals. I do things based on, a schedule, and I need to follow that in order to stay in my peak state, because I do work a lot. But here's the reality, according to me, and everybody can have their own opinion, but I feel that when your body physically can support that beautiful state, trust me, it's not only just beautiful, it's euphoric. It's nirvana, the way you say it. There is no problem in this world. We will solve anything. There is a solution for everything. But when you're sort of in an uphill battle and you're attending amazing seminars and you're doing all the right things, which, listen, kudos to you, and that's amazing. I am your fan here and I'm cheering for you, but your body wants something more. And here's where the whole secret lies. And I'm going to just share it all, because since you've shared the biggest secret ever, then here it is. So I have recently had to pivot because as you can imagine, we are going now through a change in the world, to be mild on what's happening. And I feel that if we don't pivot and change with the current times, then we will be left behind. And that's not my mission. That's not part of my plan. I need to keep serving and keep giving and keep providing to help humanity. And so I thought, okay, well, given the current circumstance, what am I going to do? Because I can't see people face to face anymore, which my therapy is very much needs physical presence. And so I thought to myself, and it came to me several times in dreams and different signs. And I had several people that are very spiritual call me to tell me the same thing, is that I had to start doing some kind of remote work. And so I said, okay, I'm open. I am always willing to listen. I'm open to new things. So I decided to order another mannequin like this. It's an acupuncture mannequin, and it's about 2 feet tall. For those of you that can't see a screen right now, I'm just going to explain it. And it's the human body in a beautiful form. And it has just the basic meridian points, which I haven't yet mentioned, but I do practice reflexology. That's where I came from. That's where I began. And I was blessed to be actually trained by Wanda Bratko, who was the lady who helped me with my health. And I traveled to Poland to take her courses. I got fully certified. As you may or may not know, in Europe, it's a very different process to get certified in any kind of alternative therapy. It requires a lot. It requires pretty much some kind of medical background. So I had to catch up in that field because I was in finance. I had nothing to do with healing or the human body. And so I played a little bit of catch up, but that was fine. I received the certification from her institute. And then a couple years later, I was at a conference actually in Montreal, Canada, and I met the most amazing doctor who was the developer and inventor of clavy therapy. And that to me is worth noting. It's called clavy therapy. It's a therapy that most of you have likely not heard of. It was developed by Dr. Ferdynand Bartosiewicz in Poland. He developed this 45 years ago. It requires using tools that almost look like sharp metal pencils. If you're on a screen, I can show you. This is what it looks like. It's very different from acupuncture because it doesn't rupture the skin. It only works very, very deeply on the nerve receptors on the surface of the skin. And the difference between it and acupuncture is that in acupuncture, it's very much concentrated on energy points, on energy lines, on specific meridian points that are spelled out in their textbooks. This therapy here deals with the actual central and peripheral nervous systems. It's about regenerating, and this has been proven through he's a medical doctor. He has multiple studies, hundreds upon hundreds of studies that actually show the evidence that yes, a nerve can be regenerated, even if it has been completely severed, which is in Western medicine not possible at all.
Yeah. Wow.
And so this tool works on the surface of the skin. And just very quickly, just so I can explain it, so you have some background. When you work on the surface of the skin, you're working the nerve receptors. So think of the skin, your entire body, your entire skin surface being covered with these little antennas. Those are called the nerve receptors, and they allow you to feel hot and cold and sensation and anything that is about to approach the skin. And those sensors are like on fire. They're alert. They're waiting for a signal because it is the first bodily system that protects you against any kind of danger. anything that will penetrate the body. So essentially, it's a defense mechanism, and it's located on the entire skin. So when I use my tool and I look at the human body, and I first look at the spine, and I see what is happening in the structure of the spine and the rest of the body, but first with the head and the spine. What happens is I use my tool to stimulate those nerve receptors. And in very layman's term, very generally, very quickly, so you have an idea, what happens is the brain interprets that stimulus, because it is a strong, sharp poke. It interprets that as, oh dear, what is this? Is this potential danger? I'm not sure. I'm not about to wait. I'm about to send all of my defense, all of my internal pharmacy right to this spot that is being poked or that I feel the stimulus, essentially, to regenerate, to just be on guard in case this thing ruptures the skin. And those things that the body sends, those bodily fluids, are lymphatic fluid, first of all, your own blood, but lymphatic fluid, leukocytes, and a bunch of other extremely important bodily chemicals and fluids that are there in conjunction with those three that I mentioned. And what happens is those are the exact elements that are required to rebuild the myelin sheath, to rebuild the insulation around the nerve that is damaged. And my tool represents exactly that. So it's like a pencil. It's a metal pencil. It has a sharp end. About a third of the way up, it's nice and smooth, like nice metal. It's made of surgical steel, so it's nice and smooth. And then the second third of the instrument is actually sort of rough, and it looks like it's been severed, like something's missing. And that's representative actually of the myelin that's missing, because this is essentially, on a very macro level, this is essentially what it looks like. And this perforation of the myelin sheath.
Sorry, what did you say that myelin is missing?
Myelin is the insulation around the nerve. So think of it like an electrical wire. It's the insulation around the nerve that allows the nerve to fire correctly, to have all the proper synapses, all the proper functionalities of a healthy, insulated nerve. And so when that myelin is missing, things start to happen. Things start to break down. It's like a wire in your home, an electrical wire in your home that is missing part of that insulation. The exact same thing happens. Over time, those wires get exposed and the light starts to flicker, or perhaps it's not as bright, whatever the case is. Of course, in your own home, your body home, it's a lot more complex than just an electrical home.
A little bit more important too.
That's right. That's right. But essentially what ends up happening is the chemistry, the bodily chemistry changes, functionality changes. It pulls down, just like I mentioned before, it pulls down a lot of various other systems with it. And it can start from a very small, insignificant perforation of this myelin. And so as I work on that skin, and as it takes knowledge of the central nervous system, first of all, I'm also knowledgeable in the meridian points, but we are mostly concentrated on the actual anatomy of the central nervous system. So where the nerves run and how they feed the organ and what the skin is telling you, because the skin is your largest organ. It is the center for the most valuable exposed information your body will ever give you. And so I look at all of those things. I look at temperature, I look at texture, I look at, somebody suffering, for example, of eczema, all these things. That's all information. That's just your body trying to communicate with you, to try to give you the signals as to what you can do to make it better, to make it come back into homeostasis. Because ultimately, that's what the body wants. That's how it was designed, it's balance. And so, so what has happened now recently with the change in the environment and the world and everything that's currently happening is that I've bought myself this mannequin.
So I just wanted to quickly just say,
yes.
I've experienced this. Treatment, and some of it fucking hurts, by the way. It doesn't feel the best. but it oh my goodness, the way like that you can like reignite some key definition. I remember, you know, you doing the back of my head and by my ear, and I remember it like being like gnawing and annoying, and like, and then all of a sudden I could breathe better. And do you remember? And it was so crazy, my like opening up of just like new and breath work. It was an amazing opportunity. So I loved it. And I think that as we continue to so there's somebody, you know, as we continue to go through this process, it's super important that we just take the time to understand how important it is.
And so going back to what we were just saying about, you know, how it works, I want to just go back to that, because I want to link back into that whole idea of unresolved emotional conflicts, because that to me is my ultimate, it's my why. It's to help people reframe their life. It's to help people give it a new meaning that perhaps was misunderstood, perhaps was misconstrued, perhaps it was not clarified to them by anybody else. And so they lived their entire life from this one event, and it could be so insignificant. It might have not even been the truth.
And they were defining success. I've just used this. Sorry, this just came into my brain literally as you're saying it. They were defining success in a really completely different way. And like, it makes me think of just everybody that you've worked with and how they define success. And then all of a sudden you've given them a whole new element of light and understanding. And now it's like, wow, how can I genuinely show, you know, these amazing people that are at such a high level to open up and determine and create a new level of success. And now they've changed their definition of what success really means. So please go ahead. I know you were going to show something specifically about this beautiful model. And for those that aren't seeing the video, if you're not on YouTube right now, looking at the video, you know, maybe take a peek, because you know, right now Gaby's going to show a little bit about the body and how it works, but I'll try to kind of explain it if you're listening just through audio right now.
Just going back, Eric, to that point that you just made, I think it's so important that we just touch back and circle back to that, because really that's been the basis of my practice. And I just want to mention that, you know, it doesn't matter who you're serving or what you're doing, in what capacity. I've had the privilege of treating some of the most incredible humans on this planet with the most, I mean, you know, when you look at it from an outsider's perspective, people would think that their life is just perfect. And I don't judge anybody's story or anybody's life, but just to give you some clarity around that, is that most of these people with the most amount of money around the world, because that's who I've essentially been in contact with for the last few years, I can tell you for certain that they are not the happiest people on this planet. And I love that, because not that I love that situation for them, of course not, but I love it that I'm able to be in the circle of people that have so much potential to help so many people, and first of all, to help themselves. And I'm able to change that perspective for them very quickly. And I think that it's important to note that not everything that you see on the outside is the way it is. And I'm sure your audience understands this already, but I just want to say it again, because trust me, I've been around it, and it's not the easiest life that you might think it is. So,
and this is the thing, is like right now at this point, so many of us can really take the question. And it's funny, because I had a call with a client this morning, and you know, we're spending, you know, she's an amazing client, amazing, super successful entrepreneur. But I asked her, I said, what do you really need right now to be happy and fulfilled? Because that's what's the missing point right now. It doesn't matter what's happening right now. What's the happiness and the fulfillment side? And if there's an element that's missing, we need to go out there and seize it, kind of create it, make it happen, right?
And this is where I think, you know, Tony's work for me resonates so deeply is because what he tells us and what he teaches and what he, ultimately practices and really is like the pioneer of this is that we really, as humans, only want two things. We want to be loved, and we want to know that we are enough. And that is so powerful when you see it in action on that level, that it really makes you understand, like, that is truly the key to freedom. Like, that is what freedom truly is just knowing that you are loved, and that first of all, you love yourself unconditionally, and that you are enough, that you are a miracle, you are more than enough.
And that's where that resilience, the resilience of knowing that you're going to continue pushing forward, which is why I obviously, I think that ties so well into, what we discuss every time on this podcast is like the resilience of pushing through and showing people that no matter what, that I am enough to accomplish my biggest dreams, my biggest aspirations, follow my why, help people and love them, and get it in return.
Totally. We were not put on this earth to suffer. No, we were really not put on this earth to suffer. It's our own ideas that get in the way. It's a veil that covers the clarity of the truth that gets in the way, that makes us suffer. But really, ultimately, we were not made to suffer. And so just going back to why this is also very important to me, this whole emotional piece of my work, is that, coming back to my little buddy here, what happens is when I look at somebody, especially for the very first time, because sometimes when I work on somebody so constantly, I'm very in tune with their body, and I can almost feel it from a distance. I don't even really need to be that close to them to feel what it is that's happening. But here we go. If we're looking at somebody new, I always look at the structure of the head, first of all, and the spine. And so they have to remove their top in order for me to actually see the skin, because that's where my information really comes from, part of it anyway. And so when I look at the skin, I look for deviations. I look for how their structure looks like, where their hips are sitting, where their shoulders are, where their ears are. All of these things that give me better understanding of what might be happening. And of course, I ask them several questions, well, a good number of questions, but when I start to actually physically work on the person with my tools, like I mentioned, I never ever rupture the skin. It will only work on the surface of the skin very deeply. But the reason why this unresolved emotional conflict situation for me is so very, very important is because as I start to work on the rear nerves, so on the back of the person's body, that is also relative and connected to your subconscious. And so what happens is we are such intricate, unbelievable, divine beings that it blows my mind every single time. There has never been one day that I have not thought to myself, my God, I don't know. I have not yet even understood a fraction of what there is to know related to the human body. And so going back, as I work the back of the person's body, so on their spine, I start to activate in a very systemic way at first all of the nerves. So I start from the very top and I just slowly go down the spine, actually right on the spine, and I hold it there for a couple seconds and I feel the energy of that part of their spine. I feel what is happening. I feel it, I see and I hear if there is any reaction to that particular spot. And if it's super tender, I already know that there is some level of blockage there, meaning that myelin is somehow affected. Now, how that is so vitally important to also, if you ever want to tie this back into business, I think everything's so connected. If you are
and again, myelin, just so that I'm clear, because I forget what myelin means myself. What does it mean again?
It's that insulation around the nerve that keeps the nerve intact and healthy and firing. Okay. So when you think of, you know, the work that I do or the work that you do in your business or in your life, I feel like the major insights come from the most minor little pieces of information that we can sometimes miss with a blink of an eye if we're not paying attention. It's like you need to really understand, you need to be focused on what you're doing. And to me, for me, my focus, my intention when I start a session with anybody is I'm so hyper focused on those tiny little bits of information, those tiny impulses that happen that if I'm not paying attention, I will miss it. But those could be the greatest sources of insight. And so what happens is as I'm paying attention and I see that there's a reaction there, I see them flinch, I see them start to sweat a little bit, I feel the temperature increase, their mouth gets really dry, or all of these signals that the body gives, which are amazing. There's hundreds of them, thousands. Inadvertently, it causes a reaction because, as I mentioned before, there's all this chemistry that is happening now. And so what happens is the person starts to feel something. Their body is reacting. There's thousands of chemical reactions happening every second to keep us alive. Not to mention when we have sharp tools like this now approaching these very critical spots along your spine and along your whole body. Your body is literally in like hyper healing mode. And most times without me even asking a single question, the person starts to speak about their past, about an incident that happened, about their childhood, and all of these things start to come up. And I haven't asked a single thing yet about that. My initial questions are more to do with the physical part of your body, nothing to do, especially if I feel that somebody is very close to that part of their being. And suddenly they start telling me and divulging all this information. These are people who really are, you know, the top leaders of the world. And it's very interesting because sometimes even the security guards that are around wherever it is that I am working are wondering, like, what is happening? Why is all this information being said? And of course, with the most amount of scrutiny and confidence, I never, ever, ever dare to repeat any of this stuff. But to me, that's all valuable because I need to understand those moments in time that have affected you so deeply.
Absolutely.
And suddenly I just keep putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And that's how nature intended it to be, is a perfect balance. Even your body, your mind, your spirit, your diet, everything that surrounds you needs to be in harmony, in balance with who you are.
Eric balance.
And so exactly. Every time I say balance, I think of you. But it's just very profound, and it's very deep work, and it's measurable, and it's quantifiable, which I think is the coolest thing, because when I was suffering, when I was ill, I wasn't able to quantify these things because nobody told me, well, you kind of have, there's a hormonal imbalance. We think your liver is about to, you have cirrhosis of the liver, but from what? I never drank. I wasn't a drinker. I mean, I didn't come from any kind of so it was very.
Does it come from and maybe this is something we can get really creative on, is or you can clarify and verify. Does it maybe come from creating conscious positive habits that can now shed into instead of into productivity, into productive habits, right? That can be positive, that can be conscious, that can be creative, that can be things that will the world's changing right now, right? So is there a possibility that this was always so it was always supposed to happen? We all know that, right? And as we continue to go through that, it's so important is that consciously creating a new habit.
Totally 100%. And I think that this is really amazing that I am speaking to you even in this moment in time, because there are no coincidences, but with just everything that is happening, I feel like, it's a massive time of pause, of rebirth, of reconnection with what truly is important in your life, in your health, your surroundings, your business. Like, how is this all going to change for the better. Because ultimately, like I mentioned right when we started, like even in the darkest days of your life, there is somewhere in that your biggest blessing.
The biggest blessing. And I think that that's like, we're always thinking of all the, you know, the negatives, and we're seeing them as things that are a downfall, and claiming victim to it, but rather seeing it as an opportunity to be the victor, you know, and appreciating that. So, you know, and it's funny because, you know, when we're having times, there's like moments of vulnerability, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to become vulnerable. And I post about this all the time. You have to become vulnerable to even be able to face the truth of what needs to change in your life. If you're truly looking for better health and a better business and better vitality and more energy and better, whatever it is, that growth that you're looking for, you have to become vulnerable.
This
Otherwise, it's like
regenerative. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
otherwise you're constantly holding back, and that holding back is perhaps that last 2% that you need to actually let go of to see massive results.
It's like that, like Tony says, the 2 millimeter shift,
Totally
shift, right?
Totally. Mm-hmm.
I think that that's fascinating. And, you know, I believe that so many people that, you know, have never heard of this type of therapy, that have never experienced this type of therapy, need to know more about it. So what's a good way to find out more about Gaby and the brilliance that she has to offer?
Well, I am found on, you know, all the socials. You can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, and of course at my website. So my handles on Instagram and Facebook are the same. It's Gaby Piccirilli. And the method is called
Picci. Just for everybody, because if you're listening,
if you're listening, here,
Picci.
I'll start from the top because it's so it's Gaby, GabyPiccirilli, Gaby Piccirilli. So that's my handle on Instagram and on Facebook. And then my website is rpt.health. And that's where you'll find more information on the therapy and about myself and how you can connect, etc. So I'd love for you to reach out, and for anybody who's looking for better health, please. It's my mission, it's my passion. I'm here for anybody who needs the help and who's looking.
And you're also, you know, you're getting reached out by a lot of other practitioners that are actually, you know, looking to learn. So mm-hmm. Are you going to be, you know, perhaps teaching other practitioners on how to do this? Because this is an opportunity that, you know, you've created, you know, the RPT method. This is you. Mm-hmm. This is all about, you know, the regenerative pathway. So are you going to be teaching like this for people that, you know want to know more?
Definitely. I've actually worked a lot with other practitioners to date, and I still continue to work with many other people and many practitioners. And I come from a very solid foundation and a very solid sort of belief that every therapy in its own right is wonderful. And it's as long as you find what works for your body, for your chemistry, for what you need in this moment now, is the best thing that you can do for yourself. And look, I'm going to be very honest. I might not be the answer for everybody, but I can definitely direct you also to another whole network of people that I do work very closely with. And we all share, because we don't come from any kind of mentality of scarcity. There is, you know, when you're on a mission and you're here to help, you'll do whatever it takes to help that person. And so if it means not me helping directly, I will get you in touch with the person who you need to see now, because the point is that you need to be better and that you're searching. And so there is a whole array of thousands of amazing practitioners, different therapies. Whatever works for you is what you need now. If you need guidance, I'd be happy to guide you. But everything might have a timeline, everything might have a time and place, and that's okay. We need to respect that as well. And that's just where I come from. That's the place that I come from. That's how I was trained. That's my motto. That's who I am. It's just, it's a place of purity and authenticity. And we need to get you help, and we need to get you the right help. Whatever is going to move the needle for you is what you need.
That's
and
right.
So that,
And Gabby's always been about serving, and you're an absolute, always servitude mentality, Gabby. And I love you, and I'm so blessed to have you as a great, great, great friend.
thank you.
And it's just an honor to have had you on the show. So I really want to, last thing I want to share with you, and if it's okay, who is the most, out of everybody that you've ever worked with, and who would be like the most who would you say would have been the most interesting person, that you've had the opportunity to spend time with, behind the scenes?
I mean, of course, Tony Robbins. I mean, he's the greatest. He is literally, by now, what my vibe is, where I come from. I come from a place of absolute honesty. And, even prior to having that privilege of working with him, I find that I always resonated with his message, with his energy, with what he had to say and what he was doing. To me, it really made sense to me. And even more so after I had the honor of working with him, it's just he's an amazing individual who literally changed my life, but changed thousands upon thousands of people's lives, and you included. And I think that, he's just really, truly a remarkable human.
He is,
So
and we're
definitely.
so blessed to have him as our teacher and continue to learn from the big man himself. He's changed my life, and continues to every day. So honestly, Gabby, very grateful. And is there one last insight that you want to share with the audience, based off of the experience today? We're so grateful, and but any last comments, concerns, statements?
Yeah, you know what? I just wanted to say that although I treat the body on a physical level, because that's where I start, RPT, it stands like Eric mentioned, it stands for Regenerative Pathway Therapy. And those pathways, the way sort of that name came to me was that everything is a path in our life. There's paths to the nervous system. There are paths to the circulatory system. There's our path in life. When we talk about numerology, there's a life path number, and everything seemed to me to have this common denominator of a path. And we are on a path, really. We're on a journey. We're on a mission. We're on a path together. And it seemed fitting for me to name it RPT, as Regenerative Pathway Therapy, because that's ultimately what my therapy, or my modality and what my method does, is it regenerates the body. And so I feel that name to me just sounded right, and I hope it sounds right to you as well, and that you can resonate. But also when we think about the regeneration process, it's much more than just the two things that I talked about. It deals a lot with your environment, your internal environment, your external environment, the things that we consume, whether it be our nutrition, our hydration, the music that we listen to, the frequencies that we're surrounded by, the relationships that we have around us. Everything is either feeding and bringing us closer along that path to your ultimate destination, or taking you away, distracting you from that path. And I just want to just bring awareness to all of these other things that I also pay close attention to, because your path is going to be full of distractions and full of things that you need to pay attention to. And so it's much more than just a physical experience. It's very much an emotional, spiritual, experience that deals with a lot of other factors. And I think that's why it's so very unique, because it takes all of these elements that affect us as humans and sort of tries to find the formula that can work best for you along your path. And so I hope I get the privilege and honor to meet some of you, or to speak to some of you, because really I'd love to assist you on your path, so that path can be one of of joy and happiness and freedom and love. So
and you know what, Gabby, you are nothing but love, you know, like I'm so privileged, like honestly so grateful for you, and so much love for you. For everybody that's listening, I want you all to know that, you know, Gabby's all her information, the website, the tags, they're going to be in the show notes, and we're really excited. And we'll have a little gift there for you, I'm sure. Just a little gift to share with you guys. So we'll get that out to you guys in the show notes. And we just want to say thank you again, Gabby. Much love. And
thank you, Eric. Thank you so much for having me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
See you, everybody. See you next week.